Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Josh Scorcher of the top 10 Fae Bosses. Now, if you don't know what a Fae is, it's pretty much like the generalized term for fairies in a way. And anything that would be classed as a fairy tale creature in most cases. Not all, but most. Anyway, let's hop in and check it out.
We already used the Crocker clip in the tease, so...
Stop! Let me in! I'm not fairy! Don't yell! Believe in fairies!
I can understand them. Why can I
Fae,
understand them?
some of the most mysterious beings to be found in the realm of mythological creatures. Of course, what counts as one varies depending on who you ask and what the setting is. For
that a
our purposes,
genie?
a Fae is an ethereal creature usually depicted as elegant or mischievous non-human entities with otherworldly powers. On that note, yokai and jinn are acceptable for this list. Ghosts and demons, however, are not. Granted, some Fae are depicted as such, so, that should be clarified firsthand if need be. As for the list itself, how much does being a member of the Fae tie into their boss fight? Do they use clever misdirection and trickery to challenge the player? These are the top 10 Fae bosses.
Time to see about some fairy godparents! Never get sick of this intro, it's always good. It sounds knowing that this is one of the first videos in a while that's under 30 minutes. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go. I guess Bossy does technically count as a Fae.
So let's start with some good old mythological fairies, or games that have heavy mythology influences. Kind of the same thing at its core. Odin Sphere is a 2D action RPG side-scroller that came out back in 2010 and was remade in 2016 by Vanillaware, same guys behind Unicron Overlord and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. As you can guess from the name, there's a heavy influence of Norse mythology going on here. You got your normal war between the Aesir and the Vanir, with the Aesir being led by Odin. The Vanir in this case are a race of...
That's an interesting way of saying it. I always pronounce it as Aesir.
Fairies, and yes, its leader is our number 10. Mercedes is one of the 5 playable characters in the game and the only ranged character using a crossbow to attack. You fight her 3 times, once as Gwendolyn, once as Cornelius, and once as Velvet, and her attack style is pretty much the same each time. She'll attack from afar, summoning other fairies to distract you while shooting you with blasts and potions. The best way to deal with her is to just rush her down. Get close, dodge her blast, and combo her to oblivion. Her being a ranged flyer is annoying, especially in the original Odin Sphere, but in the remake you get many more movement options so you can keep up with her, no problem. Just gotta watch out for those crossbow attacks and ads. Mercedes is a pretty simple fight, and she hits the Fae part being a princess and later queen of the fairies. She's way more fun to play than fight, but I'm glad she doesn't fight as she plays. That would be a real bullet hell.
Oh, damn. On to number 9.
Fairies are a consistent enemy in the Touhou franchise. In just about every game, you'll shoot through hundreds of them as you make your way through each stage. Most of the actual fairy characters are pretty weak in universe and in gameplay, with one massive exception. Clownpiece is an absolute monster of a boss to fight. She uses moons as projectiles. Not to mention all of her inexplicably American flag-themed spell cards. The in-universe explanation? She just thought it looked cool when she found it on the moon. And fitting her status as a fairy, she likes to get
the American fairy. Okay, that I kind of like.
Bit creative with her attacks. She can fake you out, and her final spell card is a survival one. Clownpiece is often considered to be the hardest boss in Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom, which is often considered to be the hardest Touhou game. Put those together and... Wait a minute, this is the number 9 entry for the Fae Bosses list. Oh boy, Sirma's gonna be pissed. The Touhou fans will get it.
Yeah, I don't even know anything of the Touhou series except shooting. That's it. That's all I've ever seen of it. I don't know a damn thing. Moving on. Number 8.
Fairy tales, and by extension fairies, were a major part of the animation industry in the 1900s, largely thanks to Disney's influence. That said, Cuphead, despite being inspired by that era, didn't have that many Fae elements to it. Surprisingly, Yeah, there are dragons, ghosts, and nobles, but no fairies. Want to know what they do have? A genie.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy the Great is one of many colorful adversaries Cuphead must defeat, and by design alone, you know we can expect an assortment of wacky goodies in his arsenal. The genie of the cup is
That actually was a pretty difficult fight.
5 phases worth of shoot 'em up chaos. He starts off by opening up his treasure box and bombarding you with an array of either jewelry, sabers, or cat sarcophagi? Once you're through with that, you gotta pass through his series of totems, and him shooting you with eyeballs from his sarcophagus. And boy, this guy will never stop grinning and laughing at you, will he? The last 2 phases are where it gets interesting. Jimmy will copy your appearance into a puppet of his own and have it fire its own finger guns at you. And afterwards, he comes out in giant form.
Fun fact, there's actually an Easter egg boss for that phase, that when he starts to scan you, if you go small, he'll actually instead summon a baby version of the puppet, which will give you a secret boss fight. In turn, it makes this boss fight more difficult.
And surrounds you with luminary lasers. The fun part is that if you shrink down when he copies you, he'll make
I should have just shut up, because there it is.
a mini puppet instead, and you get a harder final phase out of both the 4th and 5th phases coming together. It's really cool to see just how much happens in this fight. Between the massive versatility of his arsenal and his pompous personality, Jimmy is truly a major highlight among Cuphead's bosses, showing just what genie magic can do. See, Jafar? These are phenomenal cosmic powers!
And yet his living space is so tiny, he has to wear it on his foot.
Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky is one of his most famous nonsense poems. The story tells of a man telling his son to beware of a ferocious beast known as the Jabberwock. While there's little context on what the monster actually looks like, we know enough that the son must slay the beast via
Decapitation!
And that's awesome.
It's a simple story that's brilliantly told through its creative wordplay, and it translates well as a boss fight too. Many years before becoming Bayonetta, young Cereza journeyed through the Avalon Forest. Among the creatures she encounters on her journeys is the Jabberwock, a voracious fairy dragon. And dang if it's not the trippiest looking monster this side of the lake. You barely survive your first encounter with it, and its presence is hinted at throughout the game, which finally culminates in its own boss fight. Word of warning, this is a long fight. The Jabberwock is a tank and barely ever stops moving. It's armed with lasers and bombs. It doesn't hesitate to try and swipe at you if you get too close. Monster's a heavy hitter, so you'll need to keep Cereza out of the line of fire as much as possible, so she can't really do much herself. Luckily, you've got Cheshire to do much of the heavy lifting, reflecting the Jabberwock's
you have the Cheshire Cat. That's cool.
Projectiles and using stone attacks that crack through the armor, while Cereza occasionally stuns it. In the next phase, the floor is lava. Water, so moving is kind of an issue. The Jabberwock only gets faster from near and has even more physical attacks, so having Cheshire as a kitty shield is essential until you can find an opening to strike with Thorn Vice. 1 phase later, the Jabberwock gains a beam attack that will result in a bad case of death if you don't avoid it. But you got a pillar to protect you. For now. Other than that, it plays out basically the same as phase 2. Finally, you get some semblance of a break in phase 4. The Jabberwock doesn't attack you anymore, but it will fire a flurry of missiles at you occasionally. Meanwhile, you're working to unlock the cage above the monster to finally contain it and end this madness with a swift decapitate.
An explosion.
Wait, that's it? No decapitation?
Disappointed!
Actually,
Yeah, because I'm that petty,
well.
I have to deduct points because it didn't honor the original poem's ending. If Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland could get that one right, in spite of how much they effed up that story and pretty much everything else, this has no excuse. Regardless, this is still a nail-biting boss fight that keeps you on your toes, and I respect you enough for that.
Well, we move on from the decapitated number 7 to number 6, and it's...
For this entry, I gotta talk about Ninetales.
No, different Ninetales.
I wish. You know, it's actually kind of surprising how many bosses from Okami end up on these lists. As much as I rant about how much I don't like the game, there are some decent boss fights to be had. Except for Orochi. And as far as Fae bosses go,
I guess Orochimaru is kind of difficult.
Okami's got 9 tails. Like, she literally has 9 tails.
Really?
I'm glad I could clear that up for you.
You find this loop-tailed quadruped on Oni Island, where she reigns as ruler of all the land. Ninetales wears the mask of the protagonist, Amaterasu, as a way to mock her divinity. She's got a giant magical sword called the Nine Strike, which she can levitate and use to poke you rapidly like she was a Facebook stalker. On top of that, she will copy all of Amaterasu's attacks, spray toxic liquid from her nails, and even use them to poke you from underneath.
Phrasing?
Ninetales will occasionally raise Nine Strike to deliver a fatal blow, basically handing you her weak point on a silver platter. Use your brush to summon the power of Thor, and she'll separate into 9 spirits, each one representing one of her tails, and taking on similar appearances and attacks as Evil Rao. Only these spirits all have different attributes based on the masks that Ninetales has on each of her, well, 9 tails. Once you're able to slay all of them, the Divine Veil is lifted to reveal Ninetales' true form. A beaten up little fox with but a single tail and a single eyeball. From this point on, Ninetales... Wait, wouldn't she be called One Tail now? Yeah, whatever. We'll mostly use her charge attack, which admittedly is pretty...
Well, Ninetales is both a name and a description, so it would still be Ninetales, even if it's now only one tail.
Fast. So fast, in fact, the poor little fox will get all tired, giving you free reign to put her down once and for all. Ninetales is pretty creative as both a Fae boss and a foil fight. Here we have a deceitful spirit that can be split into 9 spirits for you to kill off one by one. Not to mention the fact that's the only other time you fight a quadruped in the game, essentially making Ninetales a dark counterpart to Amaterasu. Almost makes you want to pick up the game again. After all, it's my favorite game, and I can't wait to reach the subscriber goal so I can experience the majesty that...
Uh-oh.
Why do I keep allowing my writers to force me to praise Okami? You can thank me for that. Get out!
Just admit that you like it. Alright, number 5.
Okay, now we're talking about Pokemon. Generation 6 of Pokemon introduced the world to the Fairy type. Now, from the outside, you're probably looking at this and thinking...
Pink! It's pink! It's a mixture of white and red! It's so feminine! It reminds me nothing of the hunt!
Yeah, I might want to change your tune there, bub.
What was that?
Mechanically, Fairy type...
I know that was from Fairly Odd Parents, but I do not remember that.
Pokemon dominate the battlefield. They can easily scrap with dragon, fighting, and dark types, which are big heavy hitters. Its only weaknesses are poison and steel. By the way, love how natural folklore Fae being harmed by cold iron. Combine all that with some great dual type options, you got a fantastic type that hits hard, as well as defends against some hard hitters. Now that we've established why fairy types are so great, let's talk about its best user by and far. Opal from Gen 8 stands far beyond all fairy type leaders. An eccentric, kindly...
Yeah, I'll be honest, when I actually reached to a boss fight, I easily defeated her.
Old lady with an obsession for all things pink. She's in charge of the Bologna Gym and has one of the more unique challenges. During the preceding battles leading up to her, you'll be asked varying questions about Opal. You get a stat boost for every correct answer, so you better study up because you'll need the extra power if you want to go toe-to-toe with Fairy Granny. I think what I appreciate most about Opal is how on-brand her battle is with Faes. They didn't opt for the, ooh, pretty colors, airheaded approach like most of the media likes to resort to. In all honesty, her Pokemon don't feel very fairy-like.
That's right, Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome.
But Opal herself is definitely a trickster. She'll reward you for answering the age trivia question just because you flattered her. Feels like it was a loaded question from the start, so well played, Opal.
Well, we move on from Gym of 5 to number 4.
It's a very common misconception to think of fairies as just innocent, mystical, tiny winged humans. But as we've seen on this list, the Fae are much, much more than that. But the most well-known fairies in gaming are pretty one-to-one with this stereotype. Enter the Zelda series and the all-too-common sight of the fairy fountains. Fairies in this game serve as full heals and pretty much just that. Of course, there are a few notable
and upgrades. Don't forget, some give upgrades.
Fairies in the game, most famously Navi and her infamy, and the ever-so enigmatic Great Fairies. From their interesting design in the N64 games to the Fairy Queen's strange childlike nature, Great Fairies are always top tier when it comes to Hyrule's weirdest inhabitants. But in Laberna, things are much different. The Oracle duology of games is pretty out there, all things considered. And while Seasons pitch you against the stalwart and kinda boring General Onox, Age's villain is much more insidious. Varen, the Sorceress of Shadows, gets up to all sorts of vile shenanigans. Starting by tricking Link into letting her possess the Oracle Nehru, Varen goes back in time to manipulate Queen Ambi into building the Black Tower, which, upon its completion, gives Varen complete control over time's flow. So that's 3 counts of time shenanigans and 2 counts of Towers of Babel so far in the Zelda series. Getting a sense that these will be running themes going forward.
No, okay, hold on. You can throw in another count of time travel with Skyward Sword.
And people are still surprised that Link is Christian, lol. So yeah, Varen, despite her relative obscurity among Zelda fans, is a villain who gets stuff done. And once you come to exercise her out of the Queen, she's absolutely fuming that Link would dare intrude on her plan and reveals her true form. So, big surprise, Varen's a fairy. You know, coming into this video. But her design is a stark contrast from all the other fairies in Zelda. She's frankly creepy despite the limitations of the system. A grotesque insectoid fairy with a malicious grin on her face. And oh boy, does she have tricks up her chitinous sleeves. She summons a squad of 4 Dark Links who echo your movements, all while flying around constantly launching projectiles at you. Positioning is key here, because Varen and her attacks are unpredictable, and those Dark Links are going to limit where you can move. Defeat her, and Ralph and Nehru rush to your aid and attempt to escort you out of the now collapsing tower. But Varen, having none of that, thought her true form was her final form. Not even close!
Oh no, whoa,
Varen turns out to be a master at shapeshifting, and you're dealing with 3 forms she can swap from. A giant bloated beetle that leaves behind acid where it jumps, a massive bee capable of shooting mini bees at you, and a giant spider, which is a giant spider. Varen even calls these forms vile, and all of them share her monstrous face. Compared to a lot of other Zelda bosses, Varen throws you through the ringer, and her constant transformations leave quite the impression. She's a very good representation of the more monstrous side of the Fae, especially visually. Her more insectoid design is such a unique take compared to the wild designs of other great fairies in Zelda. So yeah, be thankful Navi's on our side, because if she's capable of this, yeah, I'd let her talk my ear off to keep her from turning on me.
Well, you'd be one of the only few. We move on to the bronze medal of the Fae, and it's...
So we just had a Fae Queen with insectoid properties. Now let's have an insectoid Queen with Fae properties. For none can challenge the supreme beauty and elegance as Her Grace,
Queen
Her Majesty,
Insectoid.
Eternal Queen Sectonia.
Sectonia. I messed up the name.
Sectonia is a modern Kirby final boss. Those are good on paper alone, and Sectonia is absolutely no exception. But is she Fae? Yes. Her abilities, as well as being regal, are as mystical as they come. Teleporting, portal creation, just being able to summon minions at a massive jet. Yeah, she's pretty Fae-coded, alright. And all else fails, there's the whole planet-sized beanstalk originating from a race of fairies she fuses with. Fae.
Yeah, Fae.
So with that clarification out of the way, Sectonia's fight is amazing. In the first phase, she's teleporting all over the place, laughing like a maniac and almost toying with you, not wanting to sink down to a lowly peasant. And then phase 2 comes along and, well, allow me to preface my eternal point. Planet-sized beanstalk.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You're not fighting Sectonia directly.
And you could technically also add planet-wide beanstalk. You're
fighting flowers blooming from her massive form. The Dreamstalk provides her with an unimaginable power boost. It takes Hypernova absorbing her giant laser and sending it right back to her to actually take her down now. Well, we've all talked about Sectonia before. You know what makes her fight in the base game good. But it's her optional fight in the true arena that really pushes her Fae aspects to the limit. And boy, this one's got some story to it. So after you defeat Sectonia and the Dreamstalk, she falters. But instead of trying one last gambit, she rips herself free of it, tearing her own head off and leaving the Dreamstalk to wilt. This is Sectonia's soul. She's got the usual soul boss attacks, teleporting all over the place while cackling madly, sending out color blades, turning into multicolored paint rain. Oh, and you better believe there's laser spam. By this point, she's lost any shred of sanity she debatably had. Even her beauty-obsessed state before pales in comparison to her now. The pause screens even flat out call her a pitiable husk who can't even remember her original form, and of whom death is a mercy to. This begs the question, is Sectonia's mental state a result of some vestige of Dark Mind staring back at her and twisting her more and more? In any case, Sectonia's prized beauty is gone now, and you're seeing her for the mad queen she truly is. Once you grant her a final beauty sleep, she fades away, screaming until all that remains is a single petal against the pale moonlight.
Well, pale sunlight, but yeah. And we move on to the Silver Fae, and it's...
Well, it wouldn't be a Josh Scorcher boss list if we didn't talk about Final Fantasy, and so we travel back to the world of Yorzia for another 14 boss. Or it would be if we weren't talking about the Shadowbringers expansion, which has you go to a whole new world. Yeah, so quickly going over Shadowbringers' story, you are whisked away to a world being corrupted by light, of all things. Which does make some sense, because, random tangent, in D&D, the Shadowfell is the dark reflection of the world, and the Feywild is the light reflection. In Shadowbringers, you find out that the main source of this corruption are beings known as Light Wardens. You got to kill them all with the power of darkness. And yes, one of these Light Wardens is a fairy, more specifically, Titania, the king of the fairies. Or Pixie, to be more accurate. Still a Fae tribe.
Yeah,
Titania is more of a
I was about to say that's still Fae.
Title given to whoever is the king of the Fae at the time. The current Titania became a Light Warden by killing the previous one, but was able to retain their form due to their strong will. But they were still very dangerous, so the other Fae locked them away in the local castle. Luckily, our plucky warrior of light can kill them without turning into a Light Warden ourselves, so we can end the king's suffering. Titania is pretty standard for an MMO boss, but that also means expect a bunch of crazy gimmicks you need to deal with. These are showcased as runes, powerful spells that can alter the area around you. We got Phantom Rune, which forces you to move away or towards Titania. Flame Rune, which requires a separate water rune to dampen the damage. Growth Rune, which brings large roots to go all around the stance. The tank-busting Divination Rune. And lastly, the Scattering Frost Rune. Keeping an eye out for which rune is being used will make the fight easier, but you still have an additional enemy phase to deal with. Titania will start charging. You need to kill their 3 minions before it gets to full. Simple, right? Well, they come back all giant-like right after, so better kill them again. Quickly.
Damn it.
In the last phase, Titania will try to finish you by using multiple runes at once. But if you keep it up and do not miss those limit break triggers, you'll put the old king to rest. Light Wardens are supposed to turn into angels straight out of bed.
Okay, hold on. That thing is badass looking.
And Netta, but Titania was able to keep their form and playful personality. Too bad that personality got more glee from hurting people than just playing tricks on travelers. It led to a fun and whimsical boss with an absolutely alluring soundtrack. Seriously, listen to What Angel Wakes Me. It's positively enchanting. And now, let us go to the final illusion.
Here we go. Probably, of course, the honorable mention. Yep. Name that
Giant
fairy.
Toad, Nio. Need a break from all the beastly bosses? Here's Slippy's cool granddad. The Razor Jin, Sonic and the Secret Rings. His Jordans are fake! The 7 Sirens, Shantae. Really cool how they're all themed after different sea creatures. Even the gross ones. Maleficent, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. By all accounts,
Yeah, that is technically a Fae, if you know the original story.
And dang if she doesn't make us feel the hurt while showing us so.
And now, we move on to the Golden Fae. And it's...
For number 1, we have a mystical, angelic, evil goddess of light. Oh no, it's Jubileus again, isn't it? Don't tell me we put her on another Terraria.
Oh,
right,
the Empress of Light.
So among games that are considered weird and out there, Terraria's got to be one of the big ones. This game has Lovecraftian abominations, robotic clones of those Lovecraftian abominations, rampant body horror, and Cthulhu himself as a final boss. Dismiss this game as 2D Minecraft and you're in for a wild shock, because you're not even safe fishing.
Oh, took fish run.
And then came the Journey's End update, which added a new hazardous biome that spread across your world like the Nightmare's Corruption or the Gruesome Crimson.
And that is, of course, the Hollow.
Instead of the nightmare imagery of those, we get the pastel saccharine Hollow. Looking like MLP vomited all over your world, you'd be forgiven for thinking the Hollow isn't dangerous, but oh, it is. Walk in there and you'll get assaulted by all manner of fey creatures and even unicorns. Fitting for what the lore calls an overcompensation of purity taken to the absolute extreme.
Oh, that makes sense.
By starting hard mode and summoning the Hollow into your world, nature now sees you as an infection and will stop at nothing to cleanse you from the world. And be warned, if you see an innocent butterfly, the prismatic lacewing, fluttering around at nighttime, do not dare disturb it, lest you awaken the slumbering tyrant, the Queen of the Hollow, the Empress of Light. We mentioned bullet hells before, but this? Welcome to the bullet helliest bullet hell to ever bullet hell. The Empress is the goddess of all things Fae, and by invoking the wrath of nature, she's come to scrub this world of anything she sees as impure. Starting.
And if you think that's anything, try battling her during the daytime. You'll wish you never bought the game.
With you. The Empress hits you with a laser light show of attacks. Projectiles that spread across the screen, projectiles that home in on you, projectiles that fire in patterns. So many projectiles! Oh, and all of them go through walls. Yeah, you don't have the benefit of cover here. You have to dodge! Oh, and the Empress is fast. Flying across the screen as she sweeps you with her projectiles and even lets out a floral pattern of lasers to prevent you from getting anywhere close to her. Want to make this even more chaotic? Fight her during the day.
Oh
Because
god,
then
that is.
every single one of her attacks one-shot you. Her fight is absolute insanity. It's mind-boggling. It's Fae of the highest definition. Everything the Empress of Light is all connects to how esoteric, mystical, alien, and horrifying the world of the Fae actually is. If you dare disobey the laws of the forest, the rules of the Fae, it's the Empress who will show up to cast her judgment on you. In a game as strange as Terraria, with a world that's practically eldritch, the Hallow and the Empress stand out even beyond that.
Oh yeah.
It's the ultimate portrayal of the nightmare you've brought upon yourself if you screw with the Fae. I'm Josh Scorcher, and whew, we survived the Fae just in time to tangle with another wild beast. Yep, time for another yearly roasting.
Oh, well, okay.
Cut!
Alright everyone, well that's going to be the end for today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Until then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.